welcome to this second session of evolution of teaching and learning process. In the last session, we talked about what are the challenges which are being posed because of the expectations from the professionals in the field. Now, to cope up with those challenges, I am going to talk about two aspects of teaching and learning process. One is called as the laboratory work and the other one is the project work. Now, as everybody knows that the laboratory is a backbone of engineering education. Without good laboratories or without good hands-on experience which is being given to the students in the laboratory, you cannot survive, and that is why these two important aspects I am going to cover, and I am going to talk about what is there in as a challenge as far as a teacher is concerned. So, the first challenge is the entire teaching learning process is now changing, and not only it is changing slowly, it is changing radically. Now, that meaning of the word radical means we all need to change the way we are conducting the laboratory or the project work in an educational institution. As we all know, as a country we have accepted the outcome based education where we are indicating that what are the outcomes which we are expecting from a student once he or she graduates from the educational institution. Now, to attain that outcome based education, there are certain changes which we are expecting as far as the assessment and the evaluation is concerned. Now, these changes are not limited to the documentation of the record or documentation of the result, but it is also related to confirming this with the actual meaning of outcome of a student. So, we have to prove that whatever is being mentioned in the evaluation sheet is really the outcome. Now, the students have multiple modes of learning. Gone are the days where student is only interested in learning when he or she is in the class. It is not all the time. The information which is available with you as a teacher, the same information might be available with a student. So, what is the challenge then, and what is the interest for a student in sitting for your class? And that is where you need to change the way the classes are being conducted, the laboratories are being conducted, or the project work is being carried out by the student. Because in most of the cases it is being observed that the first question at the time of interview is what type of project which you have handled and what is the title of that project, what have you done in the project, and then comes this subject matter and the basic concepts and all other things. And this is where we all have to focus as far as the education is concerned. And that is where our role has got some challenges. Whenever I say student assessment, there is an academic view, and these are the challenges which are posed in front of us as a teacher. Now, the first challenge which we all need to understand and act on is our role has changed. We are not only teaching in a class, but we are facilitator also. We have to take care that if certain things are not available for a student at any point of time, we have to make sure that these things must be made available. The source can be anything. The second, which is very important, is we have to have now increased management skills, because the soft skill component which was ultimately missing in the previous days, now that soft skill component has come to the forefront of engineering education also, where the team building, the communication skill, interpersonal relation, organizational behavior, all such management skills and the skills required by a student must be nurtured and must be evaluated by the same teacher. And that is why we have to have increased management skills as far as our role as a teacher is concerned. We have to keep on giving them training and support. Now, training is basically related to something which is not available. I always term that as non-Googleable. The beautiful search engine is available for the student. So what you can search, the same thing can be searched by a student. That's possible. That's very much possible. So what we need to understand is the student may expect that something which is not available. So how to search that, how to get the information about that, and from where? So that support is mandatory as far as our role as a teacher is concerned. The next thing is risk taking and learning from mistakes. Let us not forget that you can become successful after many failures, and we have to start saluting and respecting the failures also. So as a teacher, we need to take risk and we have to learn from our mistakes, because those mistakes are going to change the life of a student. So what I mean by risk taking is experimentation. I always talk about it as an experimentation, because whenever you are experimenting with a student and which is a livestock, you are taking a risk. You have to take a calculating risk and make sure that the learning is recorded, tabulated, documented as far as confirming about the mistakes, and then changing the strategy is important. The teacher now must have confidence with tools and resources, because as you have seen, the new concept in engineering education, not only in engineering education, but it is everywhere, and that concept is called as a digital twin. And digital twin is nothing but a soft model of everything, and that soft model is close to the actual model to the extent as if the prototyping effort can be reduced drastically. And that is where, for the development of soft modules, various tools and technologies and softwares are being used by many organizations. Are we familiar with those tools and resources? Are we comfortable with those tools and resources? And are we in a position to train our students to use those technologies? And that is the biggest thing which is happening as far as a teacher's role is concerned. In my opinion, as the students are learning, a teacher has to learn continuously, and that is why you can become a facilitator then. The next thing is, of course, and always time. How much time do you want to spend with your students? If somebody asks me a question, I may say always. I am always available to my students, but that does not mean that all the time is only available to my profession. That is not going to happen. Let's face the reality also. So how to take that time, because everybody will have 24 hours in a day. The only answer to this is use of technology. Unless and until we use technology, the time which is available to us cannot be used effectively. Now we have learned through our project Virtual Labs since 2009 that how best a teacher can be virtually available with a student 24/7, and that is the challenge which is there in front of all the teachers. But the technology has already solved the challenge. We need to understand that technology and we need to practice that technology. Going to the next part of it is the assessment pattern had changed. When I say the assessment pattern had changed, every student is now expecting, why this grade to me? What is the reason behind that? Now these are not just a complaint type of a question, but a justification is needed so that a student can change his or her approach. Every student may not come to you as a complaint, but he or she may be interested in knowing what can be done so that I can do better in this particular technology or in this particular subject. For that, what you have is an assessment in front of you. The assessment which we are doing today is not a detailed assessment, and I am going to show you some examples which we already have successfully completed as a case study. Those examples will tell you what is that which is changing actually, and what is that which I should record definitely, but while recording, can I reduce burden on me so that I will remain as a teacher, I will keep on thinking, I will keep on learning new things, I will not become just a data entry operator. That's the fundamental thing which we are expecting from a teacher to change. Now, for that you need measurement. All the time we are saying that unless and until you measure, you can't control. You need to know actually that what is to be controlled. What is controlled is basically the skills which a student is going to attain. Those needs to be monitored properly and then controlled in such a fashion that the outcome can be attained. So, that is the most important thing which is not happening as far as the current education technology or the current education system is concerned, because there is a huge burden in a class of 80 to 90 students. It becomes almost impossible, inhuman for a teacher to do certain activities in a class. So, how do I do that? That is always a question in front of me, that if I cannot measure, how can I control? So, what to measure is very, very important. But what is next point which is very important is you have to manage certain things. Like Peter Drucker, who is the author and consultant of one of the foremost business management authority, he said, if you cannot measure it, you cannot manage it. In the previous slide we said if you cannot measure it, you cannot control it. Now you have to measure, control and manage. 3 tasks which were not there in your job profile are there now in your job profile, because world is looking at it. The professional bodies are looking at you, that the outcome of education system, I am very specific, outcome of Indian education system should be so foolproof that the retention time and the training time on the job has to be reduced, and our students must work in the niche areas of the research, challenging areas of technology, otherwise we will remain slaves. This is our mandatory job and the duty to ensure that we have to move our students, and majority of our students, and you all must be knowing looking at your training and placement data, that most of our students enter into body shopping type of a thing. These are just selling the skills which you have, but that is not a job of an engineer. We need to change that, and our role is very, very important. Now, coming to the laboratory challenge, because as I said before, our laboratories are backbone as far as this engineering education is concerned. And this COVID pandemic has taught us so many lessons, such type of an uncertainty we might not have faced before, and that is where we are changing, we are learning. We are learning new ways of learning, and that is the most critical job in front of any teacher. Sitting at home, doing so many things, talking to the students, solving their problems, all put together would be the challenge. So, the first and foremost thing in a pre-COVID stage, if I really go to the pre-COVID where the pandemic was not there, problem was not there, still our engineering education, the blame came on us by industries saying that more than 80% of your students cannot be recruited directly, or we cannot put them on job immediately. That's the blatant blame on us. Why that was there? Because we have limited contact hours as far as students are concerned. 10 to 6 cannot be the institutional timing. 2-hour slot in a laboratory cannot be justified. But the point is we already have enough other duties to do. So, how to deal with that, I am going to talk about it. Reduced weightage for laboratories in the curriculum, because in most of the educational institutions it has been observed that the amount of infrastructure or the finance which is being put in laboratories is so huge that there is inclination by many engineering institutions through revising curricula, reducing the laboratory component. But that is the backbone, we can't do that. At the same time, the laboratories with outdated on in shelf, I have used very specifically these two words, outdated and in shelf. Outdated means you are talking about or you are dealing with an instrument in the laboratory which is not up to the mark. It is already obsolete and you are asking the students to perform experiment on those equipment. Or certain instruments are so costly that the teacher only demonstrates those instruments or the equipment, asking the students to just observe what is happening, and I call that as an in-shelf technology. Now, the question here is, if I have not touched that instrument, I have not sensed anything, I have not practiced, I have not used that instrument or the technology, how can I become master of that technology? Can there be some way out so that even a costly instrument without a fear of damage, can my students would be in a position to use those instruments, making sure that I am comfortable while giving them access to those instruments which are very costly. Another point may pinch us, may ask us or put us in a corner, like ineffective and traditional teaching and learning process. I call this, and I am also responsible for this, and I am making this statement with a lot of responsibility as a teacher. Now, whenever you are in the laboratory, most of the time the number of readings, the analysis of the data, the results based on that, the conclusion on that, at every stage there is a learning. There is a learning at every stage, but in most of the cases the learning happens like a group, and in a group, as you all know, there are one or two leaders, those who took the lead and complete the experiment, others just copy, and we have no way but to sign those journals, and that is where the technology or the teaching learning process for assessing the laboratories, making sure that the experiment is over, all those things we need to change immediately. Now, why this has come to the forefront of our discussion? Because there is a lack of awareness about industry exposure and happenings. What is happening in the industry? It was said in the previous years where in the developing countries, universities are forefront of as far as the technology is concerned, and industries are followers of those technologies. Most technologies or most research used to happen in universities, and then industry used to convert that into a product, and then it becomes a market. That is what used to happen. Slowly, because of ineffective teaching learning process, our exposure to industry all have gone down, and now industry is at the forefront of technology as far as we are concerned. And I am giving this example in the context of Indian industry and Indian engineering education system, very, very specific, barring few exceptional institutions in the country. But largely you will find that the students, those who are coming out, are just through rote learning, memorizing of those concepts, but they have never applied those concepts because the laboratory component is quite weak. Now, if you go back to the days like last year during COVID, the biggest problem which we faced was access to the laboratory. There was no access because students were at home, we were at home, the laboratories were closed, and still we wanted as an academician that the student should complete the laboratory work. How is the biggest challenge, and we face that challenge. Slowly we are reviving, we are reviving from that COVID situation, but it is slowly. But let us not forget the uncertainty which is being posed, the uncertainty which is there, which is going to remain for some more time. How are you going to deal with that time? Because the academic loss of a student is nothing but a professional loss of a country. Let's not forget that. Students are facing difficulties as far as even attending these online classes because there are limited bandwidth, there are problems with electricity, there are so many problems around a student because he might not have a space to sit at least. And we have lot many examples because we surveyed and we found that there are many problems the students are facing when they are not on campus. But unfortunately, we have to continue. But the question here is, how are we going to deal with this situation? Because we are not aware about unsupervised learning. We as a teacher are more towards supervised learning, eye to eye contact, be in front of me, then and only then you can learn type of a philosophy. But now the students are in front of a camera, sometimes network is there, our voice is breaking, so many problems are there, then how to make sure that that particular student is learning? How do I know? I have no way but to modify or revamp my education system, because the contact between teacher and student is mandatory. The type of contact can change, no doubt the type of contact can change, but contact has to be there. But while having the contact, the relation between a teacher and student must be so friendly that the questions must be asked. And we have found in a survey that the number of questions which are asked when students are online are almost nil. Students are not asking any questions or not replying to questions even because of many reasons, and we need to change this situation. How do I change the situation? I just wanted to take one case study, and I want to tell you how much number of hours, man hours we are putting on this important aspect of engineering education, which is called as a project work. Take an example. In the country, we have around 1.1 million students, those who are passing out from our engineering institutions. I have considered almost 50% of the students from a particular sector of a branch, like wired and maybe mechanical type of a branch and electrical type of branch, very specifically. So, if 500,000 students are working on the project and each student spending around 185 hours in an year in semester 7 and semester 8. As an individual, he is spending those many number of hours. So, if you put all those number of hours and find out 92.5 million hours of job is being done by the students, those who are about to graduate, those who are about to enter into professional world. But if you look at, sadly, the output of this, many surveys are saying that your students are not up to the mark, and finally the recruitment shows that 30% students are jobless. It's a fact that jobs are there, let us not forget, but the type of skills, the type of attitude which a student must possess as far as the available jobs are concerned, these aspects are not being handled through this important project work. And that is why I want to highlight to all my teachers that if we can become serious about a project work, many things can change, because project is such an area where hard skills like concepts, technology, handling the technology, implementing the technology, making a prototype, all these things are hard skills, basically technology related things can happen, but at the same time many soft skills can happen, like a teamwork. How to work in a team is important. How to communicate is equally important. And industries are expecting that all these skills must be there as a part of a graduate program in engineering. And this can happen if we provide or we prepare a nice rubrics for the project work. And that is the reason I am going to talk about now the project execution phases and a rubric which we have successfully implemented in our college, which will be a case study for all of you. Now, the first and foremost thing for us is very, very important whenever we say that this is the title of the project. The title becomes a problem statement, and the problem statement comes from some live or a case study which a professor is carrying out, and that is where I urge all my teaching fraternity to make sure that you are in touch, you are in contact with the industries in and around your educational institution, wherever you are working. That is very, very important, so that you know actually where our product is going to go and work. The first and foremost thing is the understanding level of a problem statement. The problem starts there itself. What is expected as an outcome of the project is hardly known to a student. He simply gets carried away because of a group activity, because of somebody who has already given me a problem statement. So, we always stress upon a point that you have to prepare a questionnaire, and this is where the first communication happens with the professional. The first communication happens with the teacher, where I have questions in understanding the problem statement clearly indicates that I am ready to learn. I always advocate that unless and until you ask the question, and that has to become a practice, that has to become a practice. So, we have put a step in between saying that you prepare a questionnaire for the additional information which you need, because that problem statement may not tell you everything. That is not possible also. Once you prepare that, then what is going to happen is then you will say, oh, this is the data which is not available, I am sorry I can't work, no harm in that. But let us be open enough asking questions, which is not happening, and it is always my concern as far as students are concerned. After completing this, having a questionnaire, understanding the problem, clarity about a problem, then you can go to the literature survey. When I say that you can go to literature survey, means you can understand now what is already being done, what is already being practiced, which technology is already available. Otherwise, what will happen is you will keep on inventing the wheels, the vehicle will never come on the road, and that is the precise job of literature review. Literature review is a mandatory thing. Normally, we take it quite not seriously as expected. After going through the literature survey, then you will realize that, oh, to solve this problem, these are the things which are available, at least in open domain or the technology wise, or which can be solved easily. There I have to just understand what that technology and use that technology. But then you will find there are certain aspects which cannot be solved so easily. There I have to identify the tools for solving the assignment, the technology, or certain things, the platform related things which I need to know as far as the tools and technologies are concerned. Once you have that understanding, then you can talk about depth of technology which is, or the knowledge which is available with you when you are going to propose a solution. Otherwise, what will happen? Your solution will be a dream only. It will never become a reality. In fact, it will be a nightmare. We need to avoid that situation. So, what is the depth of knowledge which is available with me? And if not, I have to learn. This is where a role of a teacher comes into practice, because then he or she will indicate that, oh, you need to learn this, these are the things which are available, these are the tools available, and I can help you actually. And this is where the teacher need to learn again and again few things. And then after doing all these 5 steps, then a high level design would be available in the form of a block schematic. It will take time, but we have to give this time for students to nurture or practice a very, very nice sequence of execution of a project. Most of the projects in India are failure because we jump on a solution. we don't work on the drawing table, and that is the problem. So, we have to make sure that the high level design is available in the form of a block schematic. Then you start detailing those blocks, what is there inside a block, how that block will function, what type of equipment or the consumables I need in that block. After completing everything, then implementation will start. Just look at this, after completing 7 steps on paper, then and only then implementation philosophies and implementation practices would start, and then you implement a prototype, and then you can demonstrate prototype, you can test that prototype, you can ask somebody to validate that prototype. On top of that, you can then correlate with what is expected or what was expected as far as a problem statement and what is being delivered. It may happen, and we must respect that the students will fail in between, does not matter, you have to go back and forth, does not matter, but that is a part of a job. That will teach you patience, that will give students an understanding that failure is not a crime. It is not a crime, but the failure has to be recorded so that the next generation will learn a lesson from that failure, and this is the flow chart. Once you have that flow chart ready, then we ask or we expect that we should prepare our rubrics, so that we are asking students to play the game, and the rules of the game must be ready a priori. It cannot be a surprise to a student saying that you have not done this because I feel. It should not be. So, the evaluation or assessment becomes objectively in person independent, but this must be made available to the student, saying that these are the parameters, like level of understanding of the problem statement. If you have done well, then I will grade you exceeds expectations and I will put a total score there. Every time whenever I expect you to perform some activity, there is a parameter for evaluation, and for that parameter there are ratings. That moderate questionnaire you have prepared, you have not prepared an exhaustive question. Now, these are the learnings, and this is where I said you can go back and forth, change the module, change the questions, ask him to review and repeat, that is possible. So, these things are being made available to you, you can read them carefully and make sure that at every stage as a teacher, our involvement is mandatory, because it is called as hand holding. Students are raw, we are mature, that is the basic difference between this. So, if you go to the next level, then you will find that there are depth of technical knowledge while proposing the solution, how much knowledge you have, that means you have applied clearly the fundamentals. And this is where I always put an emphasis on checking as a feedback whether the fundamental subjects are being taught properly, the concepts are understood by the students, and then you can correlate the marks or the grades attained by the students versus the application of that knowledge for a project work. That will give you an understanding as far as your teaching style is concerned. I always feel that teacher must keep on getting feedback from the students through projects, through laboratory work. Is there anything missing in theory? Is there anything needed to be done while giving that theory topic? Is there anything needed by the students? But here my focus is not an individual student immediately. Slowly it will come, but let us not forget that high level design which you have, whether that design is comprehensive enough. Now, you have to tell this to the students in the beginning what I mean by comprehensive design, because whenever you indicate that this is just a generic block which you have discussed or you have drawn, I am expecting more than that, then that would be an indication to a student that something extra needs to be done. Otherwise, unfortunately, we will just sign the certificate of a project, and that is what will be our involvement. let us avoid that involvement, and as far as possible make sure that we are equally involved with the project, because we are also learning going through the phase of a project. If you go to the professional attributes, because we have talked this with the industry also, we asked industry, what are you expecting from us? Why are you saying that the students are not up to the mark? What's wrong with our system? If you are expecting more than that, let me understand. And you will be surprised to see the chronology in which the expectations have come. The industry is more interested in knowing how much is the level of participation of a student, because unless and until you make up mind that I want to solve this problem, I want to be part of this solution approach, then and only then things will move. But the second point is equally important, where industries are saying that we are fed up. Why? Because proactive, optimal and English communication has become a great difficulty. As we all know that our engineers graduating from our institutions are becoming global engineers. Most of our organizations, professional organizations or companies are globally present, and that is the reason. The projects which they are taking out, these are the global projects. That is where proactive is very, very important. And that is where I want to delink between the project work and the submission of a journal. Submission of a journal is basically going exactly against this philosophy, and that is where we need to correct it there and there only. Then and only then. It will not be like an excuse if I have not done something. I have proactively intimated that because of so and so reason, I am sorry, I cannot do this. I cannot deliver this part of a project, because it is a teamwork. Somebody is dependent on your work, and we need to explain this to the students, saying that you are not alone, you are not autonomous, you are working in a team, and that is the reason the timeliness, the task management. It is very, very important, because we have checked and we have seen and we have talked to industries, and they are saying that even filling up the forms indicating that the progress, we call that as a progress review. Every week there will be a progress review, but we hardly and we have found that many students in many colleges, of course I always say that there are good colleges, barring few colleges, there are problem with task management, there are problem with problem solving approach. Multiple solutions are there, and how can I solve the problem, and what is the scientific way of solving a problem. It must be in the DNA of a student. Let us not forget, if our students needs to be successful in professional organization, we have to ensure that the basic DNA of a student must be changed, and attention to quality and attention to details is very, very important as far as industries are concerned. So, I just put forward the industry perspective as far as the project work is concerned, because last 7 years we are working on this aspect of a project through Intech Olympiad, where industry and we are working together, and we are ensuring that students are getting motivated doing a job, making sure that their project is a live project. It is not only a theoretical project, only title is catchy. It should not happen. Now coming to the evaluation part of it, because industries are not ready to use our grade report as a bar stick for selecting a student. Please remember my quote, industries are not ready. Previously it used to be a yardstick, saying that if from a particular institution, if this is the grade report, the student must be good. Now there is some mismanagement, some delinking between what is being printed on the grade report and what is known by a student. There is a mismanagement there, and we need to now talk about a personalized report. Now here I stress upon a point, because many teachers may say that for personalized reporting type of a thing, where is the time available? But please believe me, you don't have time, but you have technology. Can we use that technology to ensure that these personalized reports can be made available? In my next session, I am going to talk about how to develop those personalized reports using technology. Your job as a teacher should developing good technological platforms to assess or evaluate a student and not actually assessing a student. Slowly it will happen, and I am sure you will learn from your mistakes and you will have personalized reports available. Second is identification of extent of understanding of the concept. That is what is very, very essential, because if I have not understood a particular concept, there is a possibility that I may not be in a position to utilize my knowledge because it is not there. How can I do it? There and there only if I can correct. It should not happen that our examinations are mode of passing or failing a student. We need not wait till the end saying that no, you have not understood these concepts. So, sorry, you have failed in this concept. So, let us not wait, because we are playing with the life of a student. And that is where the next point which is important from my side is, can we have a blueprint of a student instead of a grade report of a student? And I am going to show you how to develop that blueprint of a student. Facilitation for the weaker areas, it is very, very essential that few students are shy by nature, maybe because of their background, maybe because of their communication problems, maybe because of some other reasons which are not listed in our resume. While entering in the college, we ask them to prepare or submit their resume like family background and all other things. Probably, can we facilitate them in their weaker areas, maybe by giving some extra time, extra technological support? Is it possible? So that our evaluation will make sure that our students are profession ready. Unless and until our students are profession ready, we will miss the bus of placing a student at a good location. And I am sure any teacher would not like to see the face of a student graduating from your institution without having any role to play in the professional world. That is the biggest problem which you will face. In the next thing, I will be talking about how to deal with this situation and how to make sure that our students are professionally ready. Thank you so much.